All right, guys, we're here to talk about today what 401k alternatives are available to self-employed small business owners.
And that is a great question because most of us have heard of the 401k, but we don't know that there are other options available to us. Again, it's a classic case of we don't know what we don't know. So what we're going to talk about is two different vehicles that are available to self-employed or also small business owners. One of them is called a SEP IRA and the other is called a SIMPLE IRA. So Brian, why don't you go ahead and give me the details and we'll kind of run down some of those differences.
Well, sounds good, Eddie. So, this can be a real complex subject if the individual business owner has employees. But we're not going to go into that today. We're going to make this really easy today and just look at an individual with no employees at all. So, as you mentioned, our first option is the SEP IRA. Now, the SEP IRA has some contribution limitations. So those limitations are 25% of your net earnings from self-employment or $57,000. Now, this typically is a pretty straightforward calculation. So it's one of the simpler of the two. But if you contribute money into this plan, you have the flexibility to contribute year over year, or you can skip some years if you choose. Now, once money goes into this plan, if you want to take it out pre-59.5, you will have a 10% penalty on that withdrawal.
So really, the 10% penalty pre-59.5 is similar to a traditional IRA and other qualified retirement vehicles as well. Another thing I like about the SEP IRA that you mentioned is that there's no requirement to contribute year over year every year. So if we have a lean year, say like a 2020 as a result of COVID, an individual or self-employed person doesn't feel the pressure to have to make that contribution.
So our second option here is a SIMPLE IRA. Now, the SIMPLE IRA is a little different than the SEP in the fact that you act as an employee and make a contribution, which that contribution limit is $13,500. And if you are 50 or older, that contribution limit is $16,500. Now, when you choose this option, you also have to make an employer contribution, which is like a match in a traditional 401k, and that contribution has to be 3% of your net earnings. Now, this plan has zero flexibility. Now, if you elect this plan and you do need money within the first 2 years, let's say, then instead of a 10% penalty, there is a 25% penalty. So there's a very big difference there between the two.
Clearly we have a couple of options available to us. We didn't really get into much of the solo 401k as well because we wanted to show people what some of the alternatives are that they don't necessarily know about. I think the main moral here is one could be more advantageous than the other, so it's really important to seek out professional advice on which will be most advantageous given someone's individual circumstances and situation.
Well, Ed, Brian, thank you for taking the time today to help clarify this complicated subject. For those of you watching today, if you'd like to set up a consultation with either one of our advisors here today, feel free to click on the link below, schedule a 15-minute discovery call, and we'll get you connected.